Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Carricker.
Hi kids, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. Happy 4th of July weekend to you. And we've got quite a show coming up for you. We're going to have the greatest moments in USA sports history. We're going to reprise our interview with Mike Matheny, and we're going to give you kind of a mid-year report on the St. Louis sports scene as we get things started with our Quick Hits, sponsored by St. Luke's. And we are midway through the Cardinals season, just a couple of weeks away from the All-Star break, and the Redbirds are exceeding expectations by most accounts. This is a tough stretch for the club, though, but here's what we've learned. If we didn't already know, Jordan Walker has the ability, the physical ability, to be great. Physically, every tool is there. Hit for power, run, field, throw. Now, does he have the baseball ability to adjust to the daily grind of MLB? He is a five-tool player, and we know that. But can he do it? I think he can. J.J. Weatherholt is everything we expected to be, and for me, the most impressive things about Weatherholt are his stellar defense. Among all players, not just second baseman, Weatherholt has the 6th most defensive runs saved in the sport, second among infielders. He has the 3rd most outs above average, and in Fangraph's overall defensive metric, Weatherholt is rated as the 4th best defender in the game. Offensively, I got to admit, I was concerned after Weatherholt's drop-off in the second month of the season, an 856 OPS in April, all the way down to a 665 in May, but then he bounced back with a 773 OPS in June. He's going to be fine. He's going to be one of the best players, not only on the Cardinals, but in the sport. Nolan Gorman and Victor Scott are both major disappointments that some in the organization thought would break through. I'd also hoped that Matthew Liberatore would take a step forward rather than a step back. His last start, he was very good, but he needs to be more consistent with those types of starts. Andre Palante has made good strides. At the end of the day, the Cardinals need to get offense from the outfield, and the pitchers that will pitch for them when they're ready to win probably aren't here right now. Hey, we've known for 2 years that Alexander Steen was going to become the new GM of the Blues, replacing Doug Armstrong. But now Steen has the job, and he was asked what his vision for the team is.
Conduct ourselves and operate like a hockey team. Team comes first, obviously. I think that we want to be competitive. We want to have a blue-collar work ethic. I think that's a staple here in St. Louis. I think it's something that our fans and our community really connects with well. When I look at the successful hockey teams, they compete all over the ice, all 3 zones. 5 guys attack, 5 guys defend, and it goes quick. You play with pace, execution at a high level, and what I do think is one of the more important elements to a team is conditioning, both physical conditioning and mental conditioning. Got to have that engine.
On Steen's first day on the job, he extended qualifying offers to defenseman Leo Loof and new center Connor McMichael, and he also bought out the contract of Jonathan Drouin. So the Blues can buy out contracts. They never did it under Doug Armstrong. Steen also added former Blues Robert Bortuzzo and Chris Thorburn to his front office, and he signed a 6'5" forward from Anaheim by the name of Ross Johnson to a 3-year, $6 million contract. He will be a depth piece for the Blues. And so Steen off and running in his career as the general manager of the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis City SC will be back at it in a couple of weeks, and they'll have a different-looking squad. City has made some changes during the World Cup break, and they were pretty hot heading in with 3 wins and a draw in their final 4 games before the break. It seems like the system of new coach Yoann Demay is taking root, and hopefully that portends better things for City. For all of the excitement of the first 2 years, and especially the first year when they were the best team in the West, City seems to have lost some of its luster because of the losing. That luster off the field, the luster in terms of relevance within the market. It'll be nice to see the squad get back to performing at a playoff level. They aren't completely out of the playoff hunt this year, but it would take a Herculean effort to get there. They do have their best player, Edouard Leuven, back for the stretch run after he tragically lost his wife to cancer. Hopefully, soccer will be an escape for him and he can enjoy some success and some winning. Of course, Roman Berkey is the key to any success that City has, their goaltender. But They got good work when Berkey was down in the first half of the season as they went into this World Cup break. There's no question, though, that ultimately St. Louis City and Corey Ray are going to have to get better talent if they want to compete with the elite in this league. They were able to win and maybe got a little bit lucky in their first year. Well, luck doesn't happen every year. And there are so many teams with so many better players that it's incumbent upon City SC to spend the money that they have to get the players in here to make the soccer capital of the United States proud, and we're expecting them to win, and I think they will. Golf, the BMW Championship returns to St. Louis and Bellerive Country Club next month for the first time since 2008. A big part of the reason St. Louis is able to get big-time golf events is the hard work of Cardinals Hall of Famer Ozzie Smith, who puts his efforts into our golf community. I asked Ozzie how much pride he takes in that.
Out of our sport, you know, you look for that other thing to be able to continue to touch lives. And I found golf to be that thing, and it's not something that I was in search of. It was something that just kind of found me. And growing up in South Central Los Angeles and never experiencing what the game of golf was all about, after going out one day and hitting the ball to get Whitey's tournament started, I fell in love with the game. And I figured that it would be a great way for kids to get exposed to something that they otherwise would not be exposed to, and consequently became the president of the Gateway chapter of the PGA here. And people, when they think of golf, they just think of the game of golf, but it's the business of golf and the etiquette that goes along with it, helping you become a better person, hopefully a better citizen.
Talk about a great citizen. When Ozzie Smith walks into a room, when St. Louis and Bellerive are pursuing a golf tournament, people immediately step up. Their backs straighten up because Ozzie Smith commands that sort of respect. And it was said that when we got the PGA Tour, the PGA Championship in 2018, Ozzie was the reason. Same thing with getting the BMW Championship at Bellerive next month. Tickets still available at bmwchampionship.com, and you're definitely going to see Ozzie out there. If you're around, he'll be following the golfers. In addition to being a big golfer, he's a big fan as well. Hey, last week, Alyssa Thomas of the Phoenix Mercury was suspended for a game for placing her fist on the throat of Indiana's Caitlin Clark and then kneeing Clark in the groin area as she got up. Thomas spoke to the media for the first time since her suspension and talked about the week.
I'm crazy. You know, playing the game, being suspended, just the whole narrative that's being painted out there. It's unfortunate that it's come to this over basketball. A lot of us, myself included, didn't even know the play took place until after, you know, the game, and you know, now we're being painted as thugs, and there's death threats out on us. So it's really unacceptable. It's something that needs to change in this league, and I'm just really sick and tired of it.
All right, are we that into the WNBA? I mean, I never watched the WNBA until Caitlin Clark was there. Now, was this a basketball play? No. Clark does get beat up on a regular basis. But come on, folks. We can't be threatening the lives of professional athletes because they foul our favorites. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's out of hand. Before social media, you'd have to send a letter to threaten someone's life. Many times with each letter, in the letter, being cut from a magazine and glued to a piece of paper. People have to chill. Caitlin Clark didn't die. There's no good reason to threaten someone's life over a foul. And I actually feel for Alyssa Thomas because by all accounts, she's a pretty good player and a pretty good person. And she got caught up in the emotion of a sporting event. But you don't need to get caught up in the emotion of a sporting event to the point where you're actually going to threaten somebody's life. That is just ridiculous and unseemly, folks. Those are your quick hits, and they are brought to you by our friends at St. Luke's. Top-notch doctors in everything from heart health to orthopedics and more. Visit stlukes-stl.com today. Later in the show, I've got a wager for you. You need to stick around for that. And coming up, earlier this summer, we talked to former Cardinal manager Mike Matheny about managing a young team like the Cardinals and like he did in Kansas City. We'll bring you that interview again next here in The Fight. Anybody who's followed my career over the last 26 years knows that one of my favorite people ever in sports is the former Cardinal catcher and manager Mike Matheny. I'm very thankful for his friendship, and he's kind enough to join us now to talk a little bit about how he would handle a young team. Mike, it's always great to see you, and I thank you so much. How you doing?
Doing great, Randy. Thank you.
Hey, you've had to manage a lot of young, inexperienced players during your managerial career, and with inexperience comes many times a lack of polish and fundamentals. What are some of the difficulties in trying to actually develop a player and get him better when he's not a fully formed major leaguer, but he's in the major leagues?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if there is such a thing as a fully formed major leaguer. And it's just part of the process. And there was always things that we would talk about where you think if you just hit every level that you're going to all of a sudden be ready for the major leagues, but you're not. You're never ready for some of the things that come there. There's just no way to replicate the pressure. There's no way to replicate the day in, day out of always being on. I think all of those things just have to be experienced at the major league level that can't be really mimicked anywhere else. But there are certain things that you want to see, and basically, I always felt that spring training was a great way to see if they are ready, at least in their minds, for the big lights, and putting a little bit more pressure, putting a little bit more maybe the fanfare of being a major leaguer. And how do they handle some of those distractions? Because that's really what it is for us as coaches, as much as anything with the X's and O's. It's how do you help eliminate some of the distractions to allow these players to be as good as they can possibly be.
And everybody that gets called up had a childhood dream of making it to the majors. So you get called up to the majors, and I'm sure some guys think, okay, I've made it. But you're a manager and you love to coach. So what are some of the traits you like to see when a young player does arrive on the big league scene?
Yeah, and I love the young player, mostly because you're able to witness some of that, what you're talking about. They've dreamt their entire life for that day, and to be there and to witness, not just for them, but it takes a village to be able to achieve those. And yes, you have to have the talent, but all those breaks and all of those people who invested, and to see any of these players reach that day. And so I think that there's a natural progression where I just want to get to the major leagues, which you should. That's, I would say, for almost all of us, one of our most important baseball experiences is that one day. When you get that one day, they can never take that away. You're a major leaguer. You get the one day, and then you got to figure out, okay, I like this. I'm tired of going back to the minor leagues. I want to stay here. And then it's, okay, how can I stick around for a while? And the contracts become an issue. You're human. And then, fortunately, if you're able to stick around long enough, you realize that, okay, doing this at the major league level and winning is a completely different experience. And that's where I want to be. And if you're fortunate enough to be a very young player and experience that winning, you're kind of fast forwarding that growth process to where you're doing what you need to do to be a winning major leaguer, and not just somebody that gets there and is able to be in experience. There's a lot of benefits, but winning at the major league level is something that's completely different.
Mike, if we wanted to make the argument that the best player in Major League Baseball right now, not named Shohei Ohtani, is Bobby Witt, we can make a strong argument. And you had him when he made his debut. What was he like? Because his dad pitched in the majors. What was he like when he came up to the Royals?
Yeah, well, the Witt family and Bobby need to write a book about how they navigated that. I was fortunate. I was with the Royals even when we drafted him. I was part of the front office and went and scouted him in high school and just watched how he went about his business. I thought it was almost phony because it was so good. Just the humility, but the talent, the mix of the two, the confidence and humility mix. The way this kid went about his business from day one of spring training, we always thought, okay, how's it going to be once he gets to the major leagues? How's it going to be once he establishes himself? And it's been the same, which is a great testament to the man more so than the player. And once again, hats off to Bobby Sr. and the Witt family for helping a young player understand what it looked like to be a superstar. Because I'm going to be honest, Randy, I don't wish that on anybody, to where you can't really go anywhere without being recognized. And I know that sounds like that would be great, and I think it might be for a very, very short period of time, but for the majority of us were not prepared for that, and I don't think humans are prepared for that. But he has navigated that, I think, as well as anybody could possibly do it up until this point. And I'm pulling for him to continue to be one of those bright lights in the game. He probably doesn't get the recognition of the kind of player that he is, but it was a joy to be a part of his story, to be there for his first day, to tell him he's going to the major leagues, and then to watch him just kind of put his head down and compete. And he's one of those few too, Randy, that you can tell he just loves the game. He loves the challenge of playing against the best in the world. He gets consumed by being a good teammate as well as being a great competitor. And that just rises all the boats. Everybody around him gets better because of how he goes about his business.
Now, Mike, you played on really good teams and managed really good teams that had expectations of winning. And obviously, when you play for Tony La Russa, you expect to win every day or else. But how different is it when you're playing on a team like you played on in Milwaukee, where you weren't necessarily to pick to win every year, and then you come here after a stop in Toronto, and the everyday intensity is there? How are the expectations how do the winning expectations manifest themselves?
Yeah, as I mentioned, that kind of spectrum of how things progress, I would just wanted to be a major leaguer and wanted to stick around the major leagues. And we didn't get to win a lot in Milwaukee. We had some really good players, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to play there. But it was different when I showed up to St. Louis. I'll never forget that first meeting. I was in spring training in 2000, and Tony La Russa made it just very well known that we are expecting to win. This isn't about you and your major league journey. This is about us and winning a championship. And they hadn't won a lot up until that point, but it was almost spoken in a way that it's going to happen. And I'll also remember this, Randy. Tony made it very clear that you guys get us into contention in September, and we've got a competitive edge over other people. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, wow, I can't wait to hear what that is. And really what it was the experience in the room. And I know we're talking a lot about young players, but I think it also needs to be celebrated, the value of really good veteran leadership, and having a room with Mark McGuire in the room, a room with Sean Dunston and Eric Davis, and later on we brought in Will Clark, guys who have been on the big stage, who had been in the postseason and understood what some of those extra distractions that happen when you become a contender, and what it took for them to still be able to be really successful, and just to have them as a voice and as an example of how to go about your business through the grind of a long season and with the pressure that comes with winning.
Mike, I mention this on the air all the time because people like you have told me, and other people that have been through it have told me, that a young team benefits from playing in meaningful September games. You mentioned that earlier because the game changes so much. What about it is different in September?
Yeah, and boy, it's hard to explain properly, especially in St. Louis. I tried to always explain to our young players who had never been there, and following maybe Tony's lead a little bit. Like we've got a competitive edge, and part of that competitive edge, yes, back then was our veteran leadership, and even taking advantage of an Adam Wainwright and a Yachty and a Matt Holliday and a Matt Carpenter, that veteran leadership who's been there and had success, and they've got a big ring on their hand. They can help to experience, but the other competitive edge is how the city of St. Louis lights up in the postseason, and that's it's an extra, advantage, and to be able to have our guys say and be honest with them, like, listen, you need to experience this, you need to see what it feels like to be in that push through September with those meaningful games, and where you walk into that stadium and there's a different buzz. People are into it, and let alone we get to October, we've got a competitive advantage that's a sea of red, and that sort of thing resonates with our guys. And it's really one of those things, Randy, that you dream about from the time you pick up the wiffle ball bat when you're 5. You can't wait to be in that moment. But I think it's something, and I'm sure Ollie and the guys continue to do it. You just practice pressure anyhow, right? All the way through spring training. You do that by making every game so meaningful, and you're practicing what really is going to come down to that push in September when every game does mean so much. It's not going to be that big of a deal. It's not going to be any different because you You went about your business like that every single day. It's just another game, but you can't help get caught up in all the excitement.
We see the picture behind you of you with the tools of ignorance on, and you know catching as well as anybody. Cardinals have 5 young catchers, 3 on the major league team, and Pedro Pajes, Ivan Herrera, and Jimmy Crooks. And then 2 of their top 5 prospects, Raniel Rodriguez and Leonardo Bernal, are catchers too. When you evaluate young catchers, Mike, what are the 1 or 2 most important characteristics that you're looking for?
Yeah, well, 2 things. First of all, that's not a picture of me, and secondly, Randy, those are the tools of intelligence. Just to get this straight. Whenever I'm talking about catching, I would say the number 1 criteria is conscientiousness. That's probably what sets that position apart from all the others. You can survive and do really well defensively at almost every other position by just being consumed with that little 3-foot circle that you stand in, and what's my job? What do I need to do now? And what's my next responsibility? And how can I help? But the catcher doesn't have that I would say luxury, but I see it as a luxury of being able to understand that position is so much about the guy that's 60 feet 6 inches away, about that entire bullpen that's out there waiting, and then helping with the positioning and helping with the understanding of bunt defenses, first and thirds, what the positioning should be. It is one of those that if a catcher's wired the right way, they're going to be consumed with all the other little things that nobody else is consumed with. And I think that's why you see so much of a natural transition for guys into coaching and managing, because they are seeing more than just the catching position. They're seeing the field as a whole. And what a gift that is. And once you play that position, it's really hard to play anything else. So being wired that way, where you love investing, I think there's a selflessness to it, to be honest. And catchers that are wired the right way, that pitcher is way more important than they are. It's just how can I know we got a better chance if that guy's really good today. And what do I got to do to help that guy be really good today?
And I know you had a really good, in addition to professional, a really strong personal relationship with your guys too. Like Mike Matheny's pretty much the reason that Chris Carpenter wound up in a Cardinal uniform. I know your relationship with Adam Wainwright. It really does go beyond just having a pitcher's meeting before a game, right? You have to. You're like a coach of some of those guys, correct?
Yeah, I love just seeing it. I'm a helper, man. I'm here for you, and that's what makes me wonder a little bit about how the game has changed. And I don't know why the catching position gets so picked on, but that's the one that seems to be changing the most. Whether it's fundamentally how you're receiving the ball, or kind of the expectations, and certainly how the position's being kind of judged. So I don't even know, Randy, if I make it to the big leagues today in today's game. I don't know the metrics well enough to tell you whether or not what I brought to the table would work, because the majority of my job, which I started with a guy named Bill Freehan at the University of Michigan, who taught me this, and then on to Del Crandall with the Milwaukee Brewers, and then on to the great Mr. Dave Ricketts, who taught me this too. Like, you need to be the biggest helper, cheerleader, advocate for that pitcher. And so I spent my time with pitchers, and I don't know if I make the St. Louis Cardinals had not Daryl Kyle and Pat Henkin said that this is a guy that we want to have back there. I know Daryl Kyle went in on opening day in 2000, so I want Mike catching me on opening day. Next thing you know, what I was getting released for, all of a sudden, I'm getting some Gold Gloves. And I think a lot of that had to do with how I invested into my pitchers, the game planning, the pitch by pitch, just being an observer and an extra coach to help them understand their stuff, figuring out how to maximize what they had that particular day. And then, off the field, those are the guys that I spent my time with, the guys that I are some of my closest friends. And I think that camaraderie and that closeness really helped that battery pitcher-catcher relationship.
Mike, you're one of the most humble people I know. I want to put this graphic up there. There are 4 managers that have managed over 1,000 games with the Cardinals: Red Schoendienst, Tony La Russa, Whitey Herzog, Mike Matheny. And the one that has the highest winning percentage of all of them is Mike Matheny with a .555, more than a higher winning percentage than La Russa or Herzog or Shane Dienst. And every manager that has managed the Cardinals since the end of World War II, there have only been 19 of them. Only Eddie Dyer, Johnny Keane, and Mike Schilt have a higher winning percentage. You had a really good run here, and you should be very proud of that. As you know, I always enjoyed our interactions, but I always enjoyed the way you managed your team too. And I hope you're really proud of what you accomplished here as the manager of the Cardinals.
Well, Randy, that was home for Kristen and I for 30 years, and where we raised our kids, and they'll always be home, even though that wasn't where I was born and raised. But yeah, just I get a little goosebumps thinking about what did I do to deserve one, being able to put the birds on the bat on my chest to play, and then on the backside of that to also be invited into that position, which man, I had no idea how much I'd enjoy the managing position and just coaching in general. I'm still coaching. I'm just now coaching executives and some other coaches and trying to serve people. But as far as that statistic goes, my good friend Red Shandy's told me the day after I got the job, he told me how I could be a really, really good manager, and that's by getting really, really good players. And so thank you to Mo and Mr. DeWitt for allowing me to have exceptional talent and tried to get out of their way, but to do my piece, right? I mean, there's a part that the manager has to do to help those pieces come together. And we experienced a lot of winning. I was talking about those champagne bottles on the back. Those are the only real trophies that I show because, man, those were some kind of fun to pop in front of that fan base.
Mike, I'm always appreciative of my time with you. Thank you so much for taking some with us today. Have a great summer, and we'll talk soon. You can catch all of our special interviews, including Mike Matheny's full interview, on matrixmidwest.com. Just click on the Fight tab. And a reminder, stream us in the car by searching The Fight wherever you find your podcasts. Coming up in the list, the greatest American sports moments on this 4th of July weekend here in The Fight. Hey, I want you to do me a favor. If you're running around this weekend and you're out and about, maybe going for a walk and it's warm outside and you start to feel a clicking sensation in your heart, that's what I felt when I had my first cardiac event. And I went right to St. Luke's and made sure that I was okay because there were people that wanted me to be around for them. And I want you to be around for us. So if you feel a burning sensation or a clicking sensation in your heart, get in touch with my friends at St. Luke's. They will set you up with the perfect cardiologist for you, people with great bedside manner, people that care about your health. And they'll ask you questions about what's bothering you. If you need a diagnosis, they'll put you on that stress test machine, and then they'll find out what ails your chest. And it might be something like GERD, it might be heartburn, it might not be a heart issue. But if it is, they know how to fix it, whether it's a stent or whether it's ultimately bypass. The people at St. Luke's are experts in heart health. They have a great relationship with the Cleveland Heart Clinic, and that's as good as it gets. And they have state-of-the-art technology and doctors that know how to use it. And you can get in touch with my friends at St. Luke's by giving them a call, 314-205-6801, on the web at stlukes-stl.com. Today in the list, the greatest moments in American sports. Here we are, it's 4th of July weekend, and we need to celebrate our independence by celebrating sports in America. And we're going to get things started in 1988 with our number 6, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, and her Olympics in Seoul. JJK of East St. Louis was the 4-time defending champion in the heptathlon heading into the Seoul Olympics in 1988 and was trying to improve upon her silver medal from 1984. Jackie was the best in the world at the long jump, and you see here, she raced to a big lead in that event in the heptathlon and started to pull away. In the javelin, though, JJK wasn't as effective, although she was still great, and there she is at the top of the list. But in the javelin, she didn't really perform the way she wanted to. So she goes into the final event, and she was off a world record pace in the heptathlon. She was in great shape for the gold in the 800 meters, but she wanted to get the world record too. So she didn't have to win the race. She was really racing against herself and history. Jackie finished 5th in the 800, but 5 seconds better than the time she needed to get the world record in the heptathlon and get gold in the 1988 Olympic Games. Jackie won another gold, by the way, in those games in the long jump and repeated her gold medal performance in the heptathlon in 1992 at Barcelona. The gold medal winner and world champion Jackie Joyner-Kersee comes in at number 6. All right, number 5, and this is from the Ryder Cup in 1999, famously dubbed the Battle at Brookline. It concluded with an historic 14.5 to 13.5 victory for the United States over Team Europe. Held in late September 1999 in Brookline, Massachusetts, the event immortalized by the largest final day Sunday singles comeback in the tournament's history up to that point, as well as the intense controversy that surrounded it. The miracle Sunday comeback entering the final day of singles matches, Team USA trailed Europe 10-6. No team in Ryder Cup history had ever successfully overcome a 4-point deficit on the final day. On Saturday night, U.S. captain Ben Crenshaw wagged his finger at the media and said, "I'm a big believer in fate. I have a good feeling about this tomorrow." Well, with Tiger Woods playing in his first Ryder Cup, he came up really big on Sunday for the United States, and the Americans were off and running. They responded by winning the first 6 matches that day. Tiger was awesome, but he wasn't the only one. Tom Lehman led the charge by defeating Lee Westwood in the opening match, fueling an unstoppable wave of momentum for the home team. The defining moment right here. It occurred during the critical singles match between Justin Leonard and Spaniard Jose Maria Olazabal. Leonard rallying from 4 down with 7 holes to play on the 17th hole. He holed that monstrous 45-foot birdie putt, and believing the match and the Ryder Cup were over, the entire American team, after this 45-footer, is going to celebrate. Watch the celebration because they think this thing is completed. Justin Leonard, bing, bang, boom, and he's got it, and he thinks that he has the victory. But wait, Jose Maria Olazabal still has to putt. The U.S. celebrating on the green. They're doing damage to the green, and the Europeans are none too happy about it. So that's the entire team, their wives and their caddies. So Olazabal gets the last chance, and he can salvage the European victory. But no. Hey, you know what? He wasn't going to hit that anyway. And the USA comes away with a victory. It was chaotic. It was the premature celebration that drew criticism because Olazabal still had that putt to make, but they dealt with it. And Team USA had the half point required to reclaim the cup, and they did. They brought it back to the USA in the 1999 Ryder Cup, our number 5 great American sports moment. Number 4, Michael Phelps. What a swimmer he is and was. The most iconic Olympic record race is his 200-meter butterfly at the Beijing Olympics, where he swam a blistering 1:52.03 to set a new world record. This win that you're watching right now helped propel Phelps to an unprecedented 8 gold medals in a single Olympic Games. Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time, holding an all-time record of 28 total medals, which includes 23 golds, 3 silvers, and 2 bronzes across 4 Olympic Games in 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2016. He set numerous Olympic records and cemented an unmatched legacy in competitive swimming, and this was his top moment at the Beijing Olympics in 2008, where Phelps earned 8 gold medals and did it with that 200-meter victory. All right, number 3, the 1992 USA Basketball Dream Team. After the USA, which had always used college players in the Olympics, only won bronze at the 1988 Games, losing to the Soviets, USA Basketball had had enough. They decided to bring out the heavy artillery in 1992, and boy, did they. 11 of the top 100 players of all time, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, David Robinson, Clyde Drexler, Scottie Pippen, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Chris Mullin, and one college guy, Christian Laettner, because that's the rule that they wanted to have. We want to keep at least one college guy involved. Well, that group rolled through the games in Barcelona, becoming the first team to score 100 points in every one of their games. They won by an average of 44 points a game, and beating Croatia by 32, 117-85 in the gold medal game. It's the greatest team ever assembled and provided one of the great moments in U.S. sports history, the 1992 USA Basketball Dream Team. All right, we're up to number 2. Jesse Owens at the 1936 Olympics. Owens won 4 gold medals at the 36 Games in Berlin, single-handedly shattering Adolf Hitler's propaganda myth of Aryan supremacy. As a 22-year-old black American track and field athlete, Owens became the most successful competitor at the Berlin Games and the first American in Olympic history to win 4 gold medals in a single track and field competition. He won the 100-meter dash right there in 10.3 seconds. That equaled the world record. Then he won the long jump. He won by going 8.06 meters, 26 feet, 5.25 inches. That was an Olympic record. And then in the 200 meters, he finished that in 20.7 seconds. And this brilliant performance earned raves from the crowd in Germany. They didn't see him coming either, but he was able to win the 200 meters and come away with his 3rd gold medal. So Jesse Owens has shown everybody that a black man can be one of the best athletes in the world. And in the 4 by 100 meter relay, he also won gold. His team won in 39.8 seconds. Hitler intended to use the 36 Games as a grand stage to showcase the superiority of his race. Owens' historic dominance publicly humiliated the hateful ideology on its own stage. And popular history claims that Hitler stormed out of the stadium to avoid shaking Owens' hand. Well, Hitler didn't publicly congratulate Owens. He had stopped shaking hands with any athletes after the first day of competition following a reprimand from the IOC. Owens later did confirm, however, that he and Hitler actually exchanged congratulatory waves during the Games. Owens' 4 gold medal record stood entirely unmatched for 48 years until Carl Lewis equaled the exact same quadruple feat at the 1984 Games in Los Angeles. All right, and the number 1 moment is pretty obvious. It was the miracle on ice. The USA and the Soviets, bitter enemies, tied 2-2 after a period, and then a USSR scored in the second, gave them a 3-2 lead heading into the third. But the resilient, college-aged Americans would not quit. Future Blue Mark Johnson scored at the 8:39 mark of the third period, and then Captain Mike Eruzione scored at exactly the 10-minute mark, and the USA and goalie Jim Craig had to just hang on. Al Michaels had the iconic call on ABC.
The crowd going insane. Karloman shooting it into the American end again. Morrow is back there. Now Johnson, 19 seconds. Johnson over to Ramsey. Leoletinov gets checked by Ramsey. McClanahan is there. The puck is still loose. 11 seconds. You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Schultz. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Ken Dryden was on the analysis there, and unbelievable is exactly right, and do you believe in miracles is right. And earlier in the week, we did disastrous dream teams, and I thought of that USSR team because that was a disaster for the Soviet Union and just absolute glory for the United States of America. That's the list as we celebrate the independence of the USA, the greatest moment in USA sports history. Coming up, we will roll on with the fight. We've got our daily wager for you. Stick around. It's time for our daily wager, and we've been pretty hot lately, so we want to help you out with making a little bit of money via the web and the legalized gambling here in the state of Missouri and in Illinois. And so here's what I'm looking at, kids. The World Cup continues. I know that Canada is in the round of 32 for the first time, and I kind of like the Canadians as they take on a powerful Morocco team, and Morocco is minus 265. Canada is a great value here at plus 205 to win that game against Morocco. Canada playing at home. They're playing really well. They're kind of on a trajectory like the United States. I kind of like them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make our bet on Canada. We're going to put $100 on it, and let's see what we would win. Let's press the little buttons here. And if we get our $100 investment down and we win, we're going to get $305 back. So that's a win of 67%. You'll make more. You'll get 3 times more than you spent if you take Canada and win. How about that? That's pretty cool. Coming up here in the fight, we've got today's fun fact, we've got story time with Uncle Randy, and we've got today in sports history. Stick around. It is indeed time for today's fun fact. And what baseball team is more tied to American history than the Yankees? The Yankees are coming. The Yankees are coming. They've got an American flag on one of their logos. Late owner George Steinbrenner's birthday was on the 4th of July. Lou Gehrig's famous retirement speech after he was diagnosed with ALS was also on the 4th.
Last 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad brag. Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. When you look around, wouldn't you consider it privilege to associate yourself with such a fine-looking man as is standing in uniform in this ballpark today? That I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for.
The great Lou Gehrig. Dave Righetti pitched a Yankee no-hitter on the 4th of July in 1983. And what better team to do it against than the Boston Red Sox? Of course, Righetti had a fantastic career as a starter and as a closer with the Yankees. And this was the highlight of his career back in 1983. Don Mattingly playing first base for the Yankees on that day. And Righetti with his biggest moment. As the Yankees approached their last championship in 2009, Jorge Posada delivered a 12th inning walk-off hit against Toronto. And this won the game, and this was one of many for the 2009 Yankees, still the last Yankee team to win a World Series, and Posada won him a game on the 4th of July. All right, now it's time for Story Time with Uncle Randy, and Director Tyler is going to spin for a decade. We're going to spin for a sport, and Uncle Randy's going to recall a story for you about sports in that decade and in that sport. Okay, so we've got 2010s, it looks like, pretty easy. 2010s football, okay. Well, you'd think I would do some St. Louis Rams here, but I'm not going to do St. Louis Rams. There was a lot of fun St. Louis Rams stuff there. But so we've got 2010 through 2019. And I think one of the things we have to talk about is the Cleveland Browns. Now, this kind of applies to the St. Louis Rams. Okay, so and this leads up to 2010. So in 2010, the Rams took Sam Bradford with the first pick in the draft. They went 1-15. And they had, the Browns had a center named Brian Pontbriand, a long snapper, and Cleveland was set up to kick a game-winning field goal against the Rams in the 2009 season. If the Rams would have lost that game, where Cleveland missed a game-winning field goal at the end, they would have had the opportunity. By the way, this was 2011, getting ready for the 2012 draft. 2011, the Rams would have had the number 1 pick in the draft and a shot at Andrew Luck rather than going with Sam Bradford. So what happened was Pontbriand, with a bad snap, caused the Cleveland Browns to lose to the Rams. The Rams wind up winning the game, and because of that, the first pick in the draft went to Indianapolis, and they wound up taking Andrew Luck. And the Rams wound up with the second pick, which they traded in the big RG3 trade and didn't get anybody that helped them win a Super Bowl, obviously, here in St. Louis. But it happened in 2011, in the 2011 season before the 2012 draft, and the long snapper, never forget that long snapper's name, Brian Pontbriand, the long snapper for the Cleveland Browns, and he facilitated, ultimately, the term Factory of Sadness. Because if you were the Cleveland Browns and you couldn't beat the St. Louis Rams, who could you beat? And that's the way it happened in 2011. All right, next up for us, we've got this date in sports history, and it was this weekend, the 4th of July weekend. It's been pretty consequential in Blues history. Earlier in the week, we told you about how on the 4th of July weekend, the Blues executed a trade that brought Al McInnes to St. Louis from Calgary in exchange for another future Hall of Famer, Phil Housley. Chopper, one of the best ever to play the game. The Flames had offered McInnes a 4-year, $14 million contract. The Blues offered him $2 million more, and so the Blues wound up with him, and Housley wound up in Calgary rather than draft choices going to Calgary as compensation. Now, At the same press conference, the Blues announced that they had signed their former defenseman, who had been sent to New Jersey as compensation for Brendan Shanahan, Scott Stevens, to an offer sheet. It was for 4 years and $17 million. New Jersey ultimately matched the deal to retain Scott Stevens' services, and he would remain a Devil for the rest of his career. 20 years later, the Blues signed Paul Stastny of the Colorado Avalanche, the most sought-after free agent on the market, to a 4-year, $28 million contract on 4th of July weekend. And of course, the final imports for the Stanley Cup champions came on the 4th of July weekend 2018. On the morning of July 1st, they signed David Perron. He arrived in St. Louis for a third time. And they gave Tyler Bozak a 3-year, $15 million contract. And people were upset because they didn't think the Blues had done enough. Well, that night, when everyone thought they were done, the Blues sent Patrick Berglund, Vladimir Sobotka, Tage Thompson, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick to Buffalo for Ryan O'Reilly. Those 3 players were keys to the Blues Stanley Cup championship the following season. Of course, O'Reilly being the Conn Smythe winner, as the Blues did win the Stanley Cup, and all they had to give up was a first-rounder and Sobotka and Berglund, and of course Tage Thompson, who has turned into a star in the National Hockey League. That happened on this weekend in sports history right here in St. Louis. And it is amazing to think how many other opportunities the Blues have had to get star players on the 4th of July weekend. Scott Stevens was right after the 4th of July when they signed him in 1990 and spent the 90-91 season with the Blues. Shanahan was during free agent time. There have been a lot of transactions over the course of Blues history over the 4th of July weekend. Hey, we have a great product for you here at Matrix Midwest. We've got a lot of baseball for you, and we want you to be able to tune into all the minor league baseball, and you can find it at matrixmidwest.com. And don't forget Fastball. Every single day, we've got a 1-hour condensed version of the previous day's Cardinal game. If you've seen the game on, or didn't see the game on Cardinals.tv, we'll have a 1-hour condensed version of that game every day at noon and 4 p.m. And then we are with you at 5 p.m., 10 p.m., and again at 7 the next morning. And we hope that you will tune in and enjoy what we're bringing to you here on Matrix Midwest. And there's more and more coming as we enter the second half of 2026. It should be great. Hey, you need to have a happy and safe 4th of July weekend. Don't go all Jason Pierre-Paul on us and blow your fingers off, okay? And don't forget that we do have all of that baseball at Matrix Midwest. Friday, 7 o'clock p.m., Charlotte and Memphis, the Memphis Redbirds Cardinals AAA team. Watch Cardinal super prospect Josh Baez, plus Nolan Gorman and Victor Scott. Sunday at 6 p.m., you got Springfield. Raynel Rodriguez off to a great start there, plus some terrific young pitching. On this 4th of July weekend, tell your friends you see The Fight with Randy Carricker. And don't forget to honor our great director, Tyler Klaus. I'm Randy Carricker. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time here in The Fight. So long, everyone.